Hello there my lovely jewelry makers, I'm Christina of CSLdesigns, and in today's tutorial I'm going to show you how to make this Celtic Waves Wirework bracelet. Now for this design we're going to be intertwining all our wires to achieve the effect that we want. And if you specifically like any of the bracelets I made for this tutorial, they will be available in my shop. You can check that out below the video. And there I also sell loads of other jewelry kits and tutorials, and you can also sign up to my newsletter while you're there. Otherwise, if you want to learn how you can make this bracelet, then keep watching. So these are the materials that we're going to need. Now the wire I'm using is a regular round silver coated copper wire, and the first gauge here is a 1mm. And then we're also going to need a thinner gauge wire, so this is a 0.5mm. As for the beads, we need some 4mm rounds, and the ones I'm using are faceted rainbow coated hematite gemstone beads. But you can of course use whatever you want to, just make sure the holes are large enough to take the 1mm wire through. And then we need some findings to finish off the bracelet with, so I've got a lobster claw clasp, an extended chain, and a few drop rings to put it together. Now you can of course use whatever kind of clasp you prefer, or even make your own. Now we then just need a few tools as well, so I've got some flush cutters so we can of course cut our wire, tweezers and pliers to help manipulate the wire, and then I'm using 6-step bell making pliers for any loops we need to make. Of course you can easily use round nose pliers instead. Now don't forget to check out the description box below the video for the material list and useful links. Otherwise let's get it all ready and let's get started. Then we need to cut some lengths of our wire, and I have two lengths here of my 1mm of about 40 centimeters each, and just make sure we don't have any kinks or bends in them. Then I'm using 10 lengths here of the 0.5mm of about 50 centimeters each. Now you can use more or less lengths than this, that's completely up to you and the look that you want. So the first thing we're going to do is grab our two lengths of 1mm wire here, because we need to connect them together because they're going to create the base shape of the piece. So I'm going to start towards one end of both of them. Now you want to make sure you just have a long enough length left to finish off the ends with, whether that's just making a wrap loop or whether you want to use that to make a clasp with. But otherwise I'm going to then put one length here over the other, and then I'm going to start wrapping this around the other one and bring it all the way around like that. And we can just make sure we tighten up the wraps. And then I just want to do a couple of wraps, so I'm going to bring it around again and just make sure my wraps are nice and tight together. So we have something like that. Just go in and smooth out your wire here. And what we can do is go in and cut off the excess, just so we don't get stabbed by this length while we're working with it. So cut it off, and then just make sure to squeeze down the very end of the wire. So this is going to be a starting point. We're going to start from one end and work our way to the other end. Now what we need to do is, the length here is coming straight down that we're going to use for a wrap loop or a clasp, and then we have one length that we wrapped around, and that's coming more out to the side, and that's actually what we want that to do. But we also want this length that's coming straight up to come out to the side, but to the opposite side. So I'm just going to bend that against the wraps there, and what I want is more or less a 90-degree angle between these two lengths of wire. So just kind of get them into that position, something a bit like that. And then from here we need to start bringing in all the lengths of the 0.5mm. And I'm just going to grab one at a time, and we need to attach these to the base wires. So go towards one end of the wire and then just place it underneath the base wire. It doesn't matter which one you start with. I'm going to attach 5 on one side and then 5 on the other, and then just wrap it around to attach it. And how many times you wrap it around is up to you, and it also will determine how your final piece will look. But what I'm going to do is wrap it around 3 times here, and then make sure the length comes out basically in towards the middle in between the two lengths of base wire. And then we can just push this all the way down to sit where the other two wires are connected. So that was one, and I'm going to grab another length and just repeat the same thing. So leave a short tail that we can hold on to, and then attach it by wrapping it around. And again I'm just going to do it the same amount of times, make sure to stay consistent throughout. So that was once, and then that's twice, and then a third time. Make sure the wraps are all nice and tight. You can always take your pliers and squeeze anything together, but then again also push that all the way down. And like I said, you just want to attach all your lengths of wires like this. So we need 5 on the one side here, and then you just want to do the remaining 5 on the other side, but in the exact same way. So now I've attached all the lengths of wires here, and I've made sure they're pushed all the way down as far as they'll go and nice and tight. And you can see they're crossing over each other naturally in the middle, so in between those two base wires, and that's what we want. But next what we're going to do is actually intertwine them more. So I'm going to take the very inner wire, and I want to, instead of them just going over each other like this, I want to weave them in and out. So that means we need to, from one end here, make sure, in this case it's starting to go under, so I'm just going to keep it there, under the first one, then over the next one, and under the one after that, and over, and under the last one. So I'm kind of just weaving it through, and then bringing it back out to where it was going naturally. And then we need to grab the next one, and this one needs to go opposite. So this one needs to come all the way down to the bottom and go over the first one, because the one we just did went underneath, and then go under, over, under, and over. So that's opposite to the first one. And then again, bring that back out to sit next to the other one where it was coming before. And we just want to start kind of pushing things into place a bit, because it is wire that we're working with. We want to position it how we want it to sit. So to do this, this is where the pliers are going to come in handy as well. I'm going to push this all the way down, and then we need to make sure that we kind of nestle them nicely into each other and create space for the next wire. So I'm kind of pushing it in the opposite direction after that first length, and that creates a bit more space for the next one that we brought through, and we can push that a bit further down. So basically get the whole thing a bit tighter, and then we can straighten things back out. Now it doesn't have to be perfect yet, because we can keep adjusting it, but we just want to get all the wires into position. So I'm going to grab the next one that's coming out to the side we haven't woven through yet. So just bring that through, and this one again needs to go opposite to the one we just did before, which means in this case I'm going underneath the first one, and then over and under and over and under, and then straighten that back out. Now it is the most fiddly here because it's still the beginning and things are a bit loose still, so it will get easier later on, but just take your time and get all the wires into position. And same principle now, you just want to kind of bend the wires that are going in the opposite direction there to open up the space more for the wire we just brought through. That way we can bring everything a bit closer, so like that, and then bring that down, and then we can straighten everything back out. And you just want to keep doing this until you've woven the last lengths through as well. Now to fasten all this in place, we need to bring the base wires here back in towards the middle, so we'll create a little square or diamond shape here that this kind of woven effect is inside of. And to do that, what I'm going to do is first of all add one of my beads to that base wire. Just do one at a time, let it drop all the way down there, and then make sure that it's pushing all these wraps nice and tight together. And then I'm going to straighten the wire out. So basically I'm bending it so the bead is sitting straight upwards like that. And then once that's in place, I'm then going to grab onto the length of wire by itself and then hold onto the bead, but make sure that stays where it is. And then bring the wire after the bead. So kind of bend it against the bead there, further along, and then make sure to straighten it out as you go. We don't want any kinks or bends in it. And then you'll be able to see that that's going to sit on the opposite side to the one down here and create the other side of that diamond or square. So that's one side. We then need to do the same thing on the other side. So first of all, add your bead to the wire and let it drop all the way down, and then just use that to make sure all the wraps there pushed nice and tight together. And then from there, going to push the wire with the bead more upwards, so the wire comes straight up like we did on the other side. And once that's in place, hold on to the bead and then bring the wire further, and you're going to see as well it's going to cross over the other one and meet in the middle there, which is going to be the next crossover point for the two base wires. But then once we've done that, you can also see that creates the final side to this diamond or square that we're making. Now before we do any more with the base wires, I also want to bring along the wires that we wove together there inside of that diamond. So we need to attach them to the opposite sides inside of that diamond as well. So what I'm going to make sure is that these lengths of wires now are coming out over the top of the base wires. And again, you can just work on one side at a time. And I'm just going to grab the very first length of wire, and that is then naturally going to sit right next to the bead. And since we have everything woven in place in the middle there, we shouldn't have to worry about anything being out of position. Of course, you just want to keep an eye on it. But then I'm going to bring it around that base wire So I'm wrapping it in place, and just make sure to push the wrap nice and tight. And I'm going to make the same amount as I did on the other side. So just bring it around again and push that down. So that was 2 wraps. I want to do 3 like I did previously, and I'm going to do throughout the whole thing. You can do more or less wraps. If you do more wraps, that will create more spacing between the lengths of wire, or less obviously will create less spacing. So that is up to you and the look that you want. Push your wraps nice and tight, and then just bring this straight out to the side there so it's out of the way. And that is 1 fastened. And just make sure that this base wire also stays in place so it's not moving while we're doing this. Then I'm going to grab the next one. Again, that comes over the top of that base wire, and just start doing your wraps right next to where we did the ones with the previous wire. Bring it around, push the wrap all the way down nice and tight, doing the same amount. So I just got to do 1 more, wrap that all the way and tighten those wraps. Again, you can use your pliers whenever you need to, and then just bring this length of wire up next to the other one and out of the way. And you basically just want to do this with all the lengths on this side. So grab the very next one and repeat. So now we have all them attached on one side. We just need to go to the other side and repeat the same thing. So just grab the very first one, and these are all coming out over the top of the base wire as well. And then start to wrap that around the base wire on this side. So this wrap is going to sit right next to the bead. And you just want to obviously do the same amount of wraps with each one as well. And then do all of them until this whole side we've got all the wires attached as well. So now we have both sides fastened in place. What we need to do is just connect the 2 base wires in the middle. And I'm going to do that simply by doing a little twist. They're all already overlapping, so just continue in that direction, just so they basically swap sides. And again, you just want to make sure we then have about a 90-degree angle from each other when they're then coming out from the twist again. And that is in the first little woven diamond shape or square completed. Now we need to get to the point where we can make the next one. So to do that, what we're going to do is work on the sides and just do one at a time. And I'm just going to start with the top here. Now first of all, just make sure all the lengths are nice and smooth, and also that your base wire there is in the right position. Then what we're going to do is take the first length of wire, so the one that's closest to the bead, and I'm going to bring that underneath all the other lengths and underneath the base wire as well. And then I just want to make sure that I get a nice curve into this. So don't pull it completely tight, but just kind of have a nice curve, especially towards the top. And then we need to fasten that in place by wrapping it around the base wire. And we're just wrapping it all the way next to where that twist is. So once and twice and third time. So we have all 3 wraps there, and just making sure that they are nice and tight. And then we can just have this coming in the opposite direction here, because this is going to be the next diamond shape, but obviously we need to get all the wires in position to be able to make that one, and that's what we're doing now. So that was the first length. I'm going to take the very next one, bring that underneath all of the other lengths here. So exact same principle, and just bring it down, making sure it has a nice curve to it, basically like the first one, and it ends up sitting at as much as the same level as possible. And then also fasten that in place. So just put your thumb and finger on it so it stays where you want it to, and then just fasten it in place with your wraps. And the third one, tighten them nicely and push them all the way down and smooth out your wire. And then we just want to repeat with the rest. So grab the very next length, bring it underneath the others, add that curve into it as I'm bringing it down underneath the base wire as well, and then fasten that in place in the same way. Do my third wrap, smooth out your wire, and as you can see, we're working our way towards the other side here. So grab the next one, which is the second last one on this side, bring it down as we make sure there's a curve in it, hold it in place while we wrap, and the final length, do the same thing. And this one just finishes off that decoration nicely on the side that we're making as well. Make sure there's a curve, bring it into place, and then fasten it by doing your wraps. So there you go, that's then what that side looks like. So you can see that's also nice and decorative, and it blends in nicely with that woven effect. Now we need to flip the piece, and then of course do the exact same thing on the other side here. So it's the same principle. Make sure the wires are nice and smooth first of all, and then grab the very first one, which is the one right next to the bead, bring it underneath all the others, and then add that curve in, And then we just need to fasten that by doing our wraps around the other base wire going towards this direction here. And then grab the next wire and repeat the same thing, and just do one wire at a time until they're all fastened exactly the same way that I showed you on the other side here. And then you can see we have that beautiful wavy effect on the side there that kind of perfectly leads on to the next diamond shape, where we're going to then add that woven effect again. So that's what you want to do now. Basically keep repeating what I've showed you. This next section we're going to do the woven effect. So you want to start weaving these lengths of wires together to achieve that effect. And then we want to add the beads to the sides there before we start bending the base wires to achieve that diamond shape, where we can then, once we've done that, attach these wires to the other side of the diamond shape to fasten the woven section in place. And then you twist the two base wires together, do the wavy effect on the side again, and just keep doing that until you have the length that you need. So now we reach the other end here. What I'm going to do is start to get rid of the lengths of wires. So in my case, the lengths are coming over the top that way, so they're kind of wanting to keep going towards the back like this. So I'm just going to flip my bracelet, and then I need to start finishing these off and obviously get rid of all this excess. So I'm basically going to just continue the wrap and lay them against the back here, and then I'm going to get my cutters, and we want to go in and cut off the excess, but just have that short little end of about 1 millimeter or so where the wires just wrapped around, and then just cut them all off at that point. And then I'm just going to grab my Tweezernose here, because if you run your finger over them you can feel the sticking out, and obviously that won't be comfortable, so we just need to squeeze them into place. So I'm going to just place my pliers just on one end of the wire, and then just roll my wrist in the direction that the wrap is going. So that tucks the end away right in there, so it shouldn't be sticking out at all. And of course just do that with all of them, and then just run your finger over it to make sure you can't feel them. And if you can't, then they're finished off. You just want to go to the other side, and the other lengths here of course do the same thing. So just bend them over towards the back, cut them off, and then just tuck down the ends. Now of course you want to just finish off those ends of wires on the other end in the same way, but then otherwise we just need to finish off the base wires here as well, and that we need to do in the same way as we did down here. So we need to basically make a wrap. So I'm going to grab my Tweezernose first of all, and I'm just going to take the back wire, and right where the wires are crossing I'm going to put my pliers and then bend it so that wire comes straight out from the end. And then what we want to do is take the other length and grab hold of everything and basically wrap it around a couple of times to secure it in place. So something like that. Then we can go in, cut off the excess, and just make sure to squeeze down that end. And now we are left with these lengths on the end here, so you can choose to make an actual clasp with them so that's attached to the bracelet, or you can make a wrap loop, which is what I'm going to do. So you just want to place your pliers a little bit above where that wrap is and put about a 90-degree bend into it. Then I'm going to take my 6-step bell making pliers, or you can use round nose pliers, and just place them right on that bend. Bring the wire all the way around to create a full circle, and grab onto that circle with your pliers. And then we just want to basically use the rest of this wire to wrap around and fasten that circle in place, and just filling in that gap that we left until we meet the other wraps. And I have no more space left, so I can go in and cut off the excess, get rid of that, and of course just make sure to squeeze down the end so that we can't feel it with our fingers, because we don't want it to catch or scratch while we're wearing it, of course. But then here we now have a wrap loop. We can attach whatever kind of finding we want to. And of course you just want to repeat the same thing on the other end. Once we've then finished off both the ends and I've also attached my clasp, then we need to shape it. So I'm just going to go in from one end and start putting a curve into it, and just gently go from side to side, adding gradually more and more of a curve. So don't go into one place and just put a big bend, that'll put it out of shape. Or you can also shape it around something that has the size and shape you want it to have, like a bracelet mandrel. But the aim, regardless, is to get the two ends to meet up so we can use a clasp and have the finished bracelet to wear. And then we have the bracelet finished and ready to wear. So that is how you make this Celtic Waves Wirework bracelet. Now if you want to see more tutorials, I have loads within different mediums on my channel, so feel free to check that out. And of course, also feel free to like, share and subscribe, and there's also a super thanks button below the video if you want to support me that way. Otherwise, I really hope you enjoyed this one. Thank you so much for watching it, and I'll see you in the next one.